What's going on, everybody? We are live. This is, again, the series where I'll be going over some 3D design work for 3D printing specifically and trying to keep it as RC related as possible. We're going to be using Fusion 360 today. Again, I'm going to try to do this disclaimer in advance of all of these videos. I'm not trying to do a how-to on using Fusion 360. There's tons of great ways of tutorials and online classes you can take for this, and everybody drafts differently. There's different ways and faster ways. Fusion 360 isn't even the program I'm most comfortable with, but it's free, which is great. Also, I am, like I said, this is mainly in regards to 3D printing because that's what a lot of us can utilize this type of work for. I'm using a TiVo Nearest. This is the one that I have at home, but luckily for everyone, I put together on my website a page with all of the things that I use for 3D printing. So whenever I get all of the questions about what do you use about 3D for what do you use for 3D printing, I will say there's a link in the description. What do you know? Anyway, today I'm going to try and do a much better job of not making you look at the incorrect screen. Last time, definitely messed that up way too many times. Changed that a little bit, changed my screen layout slightly. Now we have the screen that you're looking at now, which is just me. Then we've got our second screen, which you will see Fusion 360 is the main window, a smaller version of me in the corner, and lastly, the web page in the very bottom corner. That one will stay up with whatever we're drawing. I won't make you look at a battery the entire time. However, we still do have the full web page look, but try and utilize that as little as possible. Today, my plan is to just choose another scale accessory, and that's what we're going to draw. Today, we're going to keep it simple again. We're going to go with something like a jerry can. Seemed like an easy one. Was chatting with Matt on suggestions. He says, make a jerry can. Fantastic idea. The nice thing about a jerry can is they're a standard thing. There's a NATO standard to it. So we should be able to find information on exactly what the scale of those is and go from there. Let's check in with the comments quickly just to say hello to everyone. Again, thanks for everyone for joining. I always appreciate everyone who hops in on the live feeds. So thanks again. Got a bunch of stuff going on here. Thanks everyone again for checking in on the live streams we did the other day. A bunch of you guys checking back in on this one. I don't think Nicole will be joining us for this. Thanks everyone again. Thanks for joining. My website is harleydesigns.com. I linked it in the description of this one, specifically to the page showing my 3D printers, links to the software I use for both design and slicing, some common filaments I like to use, the printer I have here, and the printer I have at work that I use. Or at least the two printers that I have. We also have other printers like that the shop has at work, but these are mine. These are the ones that I use. They're easily linked, easily referenced, and I'll add to that page if other questions arise. So thank you, everybody. And as we go, I would appreciate if you guys have other just ideas for little scale things we should do, good projects, whatever it is. I'm all for finding things to draw that people will find useful because I do find this part of it to be very enjoyable to me. And again, thanks for everyone for saying hello, jumping in. So we're going to go to our page here for, well, first, let's make you look at the web page. And let's go find us some jerry can specs. So jerry can NATO dimensions. Look something up. There is, that's just straight off of Amazon. Here's some, perfect. That's the picture we need right there. Survival monkey. Perfect. That is the perfect picture. Let's zoom into that. That is what I'm looking for. So let's take a look at some of these dimensions, and I think that will do. We'll draw our rectangle first. It's 18.3 inches and 13.9. So we're going to start a square, or a rectangle at least. And again, I'm going to do this at 1/9 scale, just because. I'm just going to constrain the bottom edge to a center point so that I know that I'm in the right ballpark. 13.9 again was the bottom dimension. So we're going to hit D for dimension. I'm working in millimeters here, but we're going to go 13.9 inches, and then we're going to divide that by 9 right in the CAD program. That way it does the math for us on the scale. So that seems large still. 13.9 inches divided by 9. 39 millimeters. So that seems like a really large jerry can. I'm not interested in having a jerry can that large. Let's draw this 13 point, man, that just seems like a big jerry can. I'm not. We're going to use this for dimension at least. Being that this is a scale accessory, we can draw it to scale, and then we'll modify it by the scale tool later, which is a good tool to use anyway. So we're going to do that. Then we're going to use the height is 18.3 inches, and we'll divide that by 9 right in CAD. Oh, divided by 9 feet somehow. 18.3 inches divided by 9. There we go. Yeah, 1/10 scale, like most of our stuff isn't 1/10 scale. I could do it in 1/10 if we wanted, and just to see what the difference would be. It's still, most of our trucks are closer to 1/10 scale, or 1/9 scale than 1/10, but we're still a little big. Philip Bender says, I have a couple of jerry cans. They measure 39 millimeters also. And that's why. And I'm just going to keep looking at the comments for a minute until everything catches up now, because it's showing me that. We're working on it. And it's like, I can work on an RC car in front of people just fine. Sometimes you get, even though I feel fine while I'm drawing normally, but start doing something like this in front of people, feels a little different. So I just put in 6.6 divided by 11, and I forgot to put in inches. Now it just did 6.6 millimeters. 6.6 inches divided by 11. So now it gave us the appropriate overall proportions to this thing. The height, width, depth of everything should be appropriate to a jerry can. I'm going to just keep kind of referring back to it. The other thing is that a lot of the jerry cans, they seem to have a different style handle than what the NATO ones have with the 3 handles. So we're going to try and go for that specifically when we do this one. So let's put on some of our radiuses at this point even, just to get a feel for it, to see if it's going to start looking how we want. So I'm going around and selecting all of the areas that I want the radius to be on. And then with Fusion, you can actually just drag, and obviously that's it's a little sensitive. So you can type 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter. Let's go Let's go with a 3mm radius. And then we'll go ahead and throw that same, that looks a little much on the outside edges to do a 3mm. We'll do a 2mm radius around the outside edges. So now we have a generic block that has a reasonable start to the style of our design. This is something that we could definitely refine, especially around the handles. It's like that stuff almost feels like it could be a little sharp or a little too rounded, but let's just keep this pretty high level and not get crazy worried about every part of it. Again, this is more just about taking an item that you want. We're gonna break it down into shapes, and maybe it'll give you guys something to think about when you're trying to tackle a project. So I just drew a general shape of a handle, not off of any dimensions, just kind of throwing lines out there. And then so let's do we're going to make it a 3mm gap in between the handle areas. I need to set the width of this handle still. Nine millimeters. It's a little wide. 8. Going back and forth looking at the photo. I've got the photo so that it's up on your guys' screen, but I have to kind of go back and forth for now at least. So do that. Then we're going to select that profile we drew, rotate around just so we can see. We're just going to drag it through as a cut. You can set an actual depth. You can just drag through, whatever you like. That'll give us our first cut. While we're at it, we'll go back in and add in some small radii to the inside of the handle. Aren't you done yet? I'm ready to print this already. Thanks, Matt. Thank you for that. So while we're at it, I'm just going to pull up some images. Jerry can, yeah, images, sure. So obviously, there's some of these are different styles. You know, the metal ones with almost like a welded on handle at the top. That's obviously where we're seeing the different styles. Some that are molded with a single handle, some that are molded with the 3 handles. For some reason, I like the 3 handle style. So let's do that. Let's make a cut now. I selected the very top of the jerry can. The snaps on Fusion are very odd to me, coming from some of the other programs that I've drafted in. Sometimes it wants to snap to just the oddest places. And let's see. Right. What I would like to do is change the view style on this to a wireframe style. Shaded with hidden edges. That's what I'm looking for. Well, actually, can I just... I want to be able to... Wish it would let me select those edges. This is just the difference from one program to the next sometimes, and where I have a little bit of difficulty, especially when I'm not as familiar with Fusion 360 as I am something like SolidWorks. But it's just work our way through it. It's actually just, we're going to cut in a little bit deeper, and then we'll throw some fillets on it just because. We're going to make these cutouts that we're marking right now, we're going to make them 3 millimeters wide. Then I'm going to put a line between them, a construction line, and I'm going to snap to that, snap to a line next to it with some midpoint constraints so that I can make sure that they're spaced in the middle. That way if I adjust one, they both adjust in and out. Then we'll put 3 millimeters between them or so. Go to the chat just to see how much of a hard time people are giving me. Yes, I am making handles currently. I'm making the cuts out of the top. So I'm making these two rectangles and I'm going to cut them down through the item. So just taking a general cut. Let me just show you now, and we can go back and look at it. We're going to go down. I'm going to just select this. When I selected the surface there, then it just drags that cut down to an area. So did that, and then you end up with a few handles. Again, very simple handles. We could get fancy and inset the outside ones in, and you can just keep going. Everything just, it's all about how crazy you want it to look. And I think later when we get further and further into these projects, or see, there's me hitting the button, but I noticed it right away. So I'm gonna get better at these things. So we threw a couple of radius on there, and now we have something that looks somewhat like what I think we would call a jerry can, or the handles to it. Can I put my crown logo on it when I'm done? I don't think I have that vector artwork on here. I'm going to just grab these cutouts and see if it will allow me to put a radius on them. Or if, yeah, it allowed me to. So I threw an inside radius on those just to kind of make things, smooth things out a little bit. This isn't the best thing I've ever designed. It's also not the worst thing. I've done way uglier. So what I just did right there is I grabbed the radius tool again, and I selected these two lines where we had before, and just this random line in here, but it's a hard line. And if this is like a molded item, you know, like you're supposed to look like one, I didn't want a hard line. So I just grabbed that, and then I'm just gonna kind of drag and soften it up by adding a radius in there. And I think that looks better than before. Now, I've got a couple of other little hard edges back here. See if we can grab all four of these. We get lucky. Fusional. It'll let us. Yep. So let's just put a 1 mil radius. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I don't hate it. Grabbing a couple of more of these hard corners. Throwing a 1 millimeter radius in. Again, just trying to soften all these little areas up as much as we can. Trying to disguise my quick and dirty CAD work with lots and lots of radius tools. That'll work. And this shouldn't be that hard to 3D print, especially if you print it with this side down, because it'll be about like that. And then you won't have to... Well, let me... Sometimes I hate how Fusion rotates around, but whatever. The reason I say that it won't be that hard to print is because I won't have to bridge these, even though most printers would be able to bridge that little bit of gap without any problems. Aren't those handles a little thick? They could be. Let's see. Let's go to that other one. Yeah, I mean, they might be a little bit. But also, I'm trying to keep them to a thickness that is reasonable to 3D print. If you try and make things too thin, there just isn't enough layers there of 3D printing. So if you want it to be easily printable on a printer like just a regular FDM printer, you know, then it's good. So now that we got the handles, let's add the fuel filler nozzle, and then we'll add the fuel filler cap area, and then we'll add the big funky X that goes on the side. So being that we want it to 3D print easily, I think we'll go with one that's kind of, you know, simple, like a pretty basic filler cap. Hey, sign up for something. It's asking me to. So, okay, let's just add something basic on the top portion there. Can you still see me? Yep, still on the right page. I haven't switched views accidentally for the 9th time to screw up everything. I'm going to grab a center line and go up. So I'm starting in roughly the correct position. Then we're going to draw a circle. Find the center line of that. Draw a filler cap, and we'll call it, what was that, 7 millimeters? Yeah, let's do 7.5 millimeters, just because. We're going to take that and drag it up. 3 millimeters look terrible. Nah, that'll work. Now, we'll throw a 0.5 millimeter radius on it. And then let's also go back in and add some detail to that. So, most or almost all CAD programs have a pattern tool that we can use. So I'm going to add a circle for us to go on. I'll constrain later. Then we're going to add, let's see, let's do a 2 millimeter. Now, can I, I'm sure that this has the pattern tool, circular pattern. So select the objects. I want that one, center point, this circle. And then we can just say how many of these we want. So what I'm trying to construct or trying to draw here is basically like the little finger grips that would be in the, you know, around a filler cap of some sort. So 10 of them, sure. Now, since we just kind of freehanded that, we can modify these dimensions. We'll say that's a 8.5 millimeter radius. Sure. Now we need to select all these little profiles. These dimensions were all just made up. I'm going to drag them down. We're going to go 3 millimeters down and do a cut. Now we have a filler neck that looks slightly fancier than a round circle, right? We want to get maybe just like a little more of some sort of detail. We can just pull another circle on the front, 5 millimeter radius, and then go down a 0.5 millimeter just to add a little bit of depth and detail. Let's see. That's okay, right? Not the worst. That's one big cap. Okay. Well, you know, say for example, we think that cap is just too big. So we go back to our first dimension, and let's just say, let's go to 6.5. Make it smaller there. Then we go, since our cutouts were not touching now, let's take this to 7.5. You know, or maybe it was the extrude dimension that was too much. Go to 2.5 mil instead of 3. And this only knows 2.5. So you can go back and just keep modifying and changing all the little things you want. Maybe that looks better to you. I don't know that it was too big or too small. Maybe this one's going to be a little harder to print now, but you can see you can just go back and change things as you want. It doesn't have to be, nothing's that much, it's not set in stone. You just go back and change something. It'll blow up your drawing maybe, you know, but you just got to go back and see what you need to change to make it all fit. It doesn't have to be in the way. Just change stuff. Feel free. Jump in there and screw something up. Who cares? I threw a little radius on the inside of that cap now just to make it, I don't know, smoother. Right? You know, the other things you could do is maybe you want this cap to be a separate piece. Like, don't draw it on there. You want to make it, you want to print the can out of blue PLA, and then you want to print the cap separately out of black. So just make it two separate pieces. Maybe you make a little indent in there so there's a hole so that you can, you know, align it or glue it or screw it on, anything you want. You know, it's you can do anything. You can do it. So there's that. Now what do we got next? Let's go back to the other one. We got to add the big X on the side, right? They all have some sort of that version. All kinds of different styles. I'm just looking at them to see if there's one that... They're all different. I mean... So, let's just come up with something. We're going to start on the side. We're going to start ourselves a sketch. I'm going to put a rectangle in the middle. And actually, I'm going to go back to my images and just look. I think I have you all on the same screen. So again, you can see. So the lines, what I was looking at is I didn't know if things needed to line up or not. But, you know, like these lines don't necessarily line up with each other. This is a water one, I know. It's not a fuel or a diesel or whatever. But you get what you pay for on this not podcast. What am I doing? What do I do here? Live video. So I'm just going to draw a handful of random lines in no particular direction or order. Then we're going to go back and we're going to start adding dimensions. So I drew those lines, and then I'm just going to we're going to go put a dimension on this of 135 degrees, kind of like a complement angle to a 45-degree angle. I mean, it's not exactly, unless you're talking about 180 degrees, but whatever. So we made those. Now we'll make them all about the same length. 6 millimeters sounds great. Now, rather than going and putting the same dimension on all of them, I'm going to select all 4 of those legs and then go up to the top and hit equal. So then it makes them all the same. Now, those lines that I'm making are just for construction. I'm going to go and select each of them and hit X, and that makes them like a dashed line. And it's just, those are there then to guide me in the right direction. So, does this have... It does. I'm going to use this tool and I understand also that sometimes when I drop down these tools, it actually doesn't show you guys that, and I wish that I knew how to do that, but I'm using the slot tool in Fusion, which makes me think of Beavis and Butthead, but whatever. So I started to do that, and then I realized that there's a issue with that, so I'm going to make some of these lines longer first, and then I'm going to, and I'm doing that so that I can use that slot tool a little bit easier, because I'll show you why. So anyway, we're going back, the slot tool, center to center slot. We'll click on the outside, then on the inner. So we're just going to do that process around. I'll go back and add dimensions in a minute. So now let's add a 1.5 millimeter radius. And then I'm going to go make all of those equal so that all of the sizes are the same. That center rectangle, let's go, let's see, 12 by 10. I don't know. Nah, I don't like that. Go Which way should this be? Should it be a taller center? Yeah, like that. We're going to make this 10 wide and 14 tall for the center rectangle portion of my drawing. Now, that actually makes that all equal there. The one thing I haven't done is put it in the center. So I drew a construction line, match it to the midpoint, make it horizontal. The only other thing is setting the height on the side. Let's try this. Oops. Oh, I see where I needed to drag this one down a little further. Oh well. Okay. So before I check the comments, let me go through and select all these, assuming that I haven't screwed up and you guys aren't seeing the wrong thing and yelling at me this whole time. Do that, then let's just drag it into there. 1 millimeter, sure. That looks too low. We need to raise it up, don't we think? Let's go to the comments. I think we need to raise that whole thing up. And I don't know if I love the angle. Maybe the angle needs to change. I think we're halfway okay here. He had it looking right before he goofed with it. I don't like the position on the side, so I'm going to raise that up. Right now it's at 8.7. Let's go to 10. That makes it look better. This program is Apple compatible. If you would like to download this on a Mac, you absolutely can. So, let's see. And we need to, right now we have the whole center of the area depressed, and I don't like that. So let's go in. Actually, let's set the length of all of these the sides of the slots. I love the slots. To the same. And then pull those around. Now I'm just going to make a rectangle that snaps onto those center points. So now we can play with it in the whole, play with the slots and everything moves. .5 millimeter. Next episode, a trash can with a lid. That's a good idea. Trash. So we need to edit the feature to deselect that center area that we just added. That looks way better. Let's add our favorite radiuses, radii everywhere. Radii, all the things. Outside. Oh, I did a bunch of faces. Always selects the things you don't want it to. And is 1 mil going to be too big? I think it might be. 0.5? Oh, I see what happened. Ah. It had things that I didn't like, or didn't want radiused. I'll be more careful this time. Okay. Now is 0.5 enough? I don't know if it is. 1 millimeter looks better. Halfway decent? Halfway decent. Throw a 0.5 millimeter radius on top and bottom. Start to smooth everything out. Is that terrible? I think we could have done worse. So now we just need to mirror it to the other side. Let's do that. We'll go to create, or is it under modify? I always forget. Create, mirror. So we want to do features, select that last cut and both of the radii that we did. And then the mirror plane. So the mirror plane we actually don't have. That's a good thing to show. So we can construct a mirror plane or offset a mirror plane. If you want to do offset, you can use the inspect tool at the top and then just measure the width of your item and divide it if you wanted. We're at 15.24 millimeters, which is like an oddball one. You can also do a construct offset plane through a point. And let's see if we can find, or mid plane, let's see. And select, can we do it by faces? Yep. We selected 2 faces and then it gave us the exact center point for a plane. Plane is where you have to have a plane to draw on, basically, whether it's a surface or a defined plane like what we just created. These are, again, if you really want to learn these things, this is not I'm not going slow enough. I'm not explaining myself well enough. None of what I'm doing is good enough to actually learn. I'm just showing you how I break things down and maybe some general tips or whatever I'm doing in the middle. So I want to take and all that work we did on one side with this depressed area, I want to copy it to the other. So I selected those 3 things that we did, the cut and then the 2 sets of radiuses, and then I want to mirror it to the other side. So now we're going to add it over there. Now we have it on both. We can hide that plane so we don't have to see it. Now we've got a couple of, and that's just like a simple jerry can. We knocked that thing out. How much time have we spent trying to knock this out? I mean, a pretty long time. But, you know, for something so simple, it's it can still take a little bit of time. But if you're not trying to talk and think it's too deep. Okay, let's adjust it. So let's first go to our cut. The nice thing is that we're going to make these changes to this side and it's going to affect that side. So if you think it's too deep, let's take this and go from 1 mil to, let's just go to a 0.5 millimeter, which I think is going to be too narrow or too shallow. Oops, I need to make sure it's negative. So 0.5 millimeter, and it actually recomputed all of our radiuses, which is good. but actually, I think you're right. That looks better. 0.5 millimeter depth. Looks good. Will this be hollow? This will not be hollow. And for 3D printing, it would be best if it was not. Unless you were doing it on shapeways and you had a way for the material to get out at the end, because that prints a different way. But that's like that's a whole other thing of designing. So, you know. But anyway, I think that this looks pretty decent. Something simple. Is there anything else we should add to this? Am I missing anything for a simple jerry can? I think that that's probably pretty good. You know, they some of them do have some shape to the front, or, you know, a little bit of a bevel on the front. It's like we could almost add that, but we'll say that it's fine. No big deal. How much shock oil will it hold? Nice. Thanks. Do I have a Shapeways store? I do have a Shapeways store, but it's just for like pretty specific or basic items. Nothing crazy. I don't try and sell like all of the stuff that we just are drawing in here. These files I just once we call this thing done, I'm gonna just throw this up on Thingiverse, and you guys can download it and 3D print it yourself. A mount, we could design a quick mount for it. Don't forget your HD. Okay, let's throw an HD in the bottom, just because. Why not? I like the idea. Did it the last time. So the text is going to say HD. The font is Impact. Nope, not ink free. Impact. Angle is 90. No, that's not right. Negative 90. Let's see. Height. Can we get 13 millimeters out of it? Just barely. Go negative 0.4. So a 2-layer cut on a 3D printer at 0.2 millimeters. Simple. Need something on the bottom for poking fun at Matt. Oh. Is 3D printing strong enough to make wheels? It wouldn't be strong enough for how I drive an RC car. Some people 3D print wheels. It's just not something I would do. It's not something I like. You know, those high, you know, stress areas. A link to my Thingiverse. Sure. In the chat. Let me do it in a window that's not my shared window. Let's see, my designs, copy. Okay, here is my Thingiverse in the chat. It's been added. It's also will be in the link of the description if you're watching this after the feed. So I would make a small square around the cap and raise it a little. What are you looking at to compare that to? I mean, I'm looking at ones that are kind of similar to this, that just have a, you know, they're pretty plain nozzle. And I'm doing that just because the ones that have like the flip nozzle would be a little bit harder to 3D print in a quality way. Oh my God, everybody wants you to sign up for their stuff. Who would have guessed it? So, you know, we mixed like 10 different styles of jerry can to try and come up with one that was simple and easy to draw. So let's see. Let's do just a quick and dirty mount, just because. So we're gonna start on the bottom. We're gonna start it from the bottom. Now we're here. So let's go a total of 3 millimeters to the outside, all the way around. We're gonna need to leave a little bit of an air gap. I'll have these will be designed to be printed separately, but I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do it at least. So let's make this, I don't know, 2.4 millimeters thick. Sound good? Sure. Now let's, how do we want to do it? Okay, I have a general style idea. Do that, then we're going to offset the perimeter in 2.1 millimeter. Give us a little bit of a, can we, 2.5. It's a pretty tight gap, but it'll work. So we're gonna take that, and then we're actually, I'll show you, I'm gonna extrude that quite a ways up. Now don't freak out yet. This isn't how I'm leaving it. Oh, one thing I did forget to do is when I created this feature, I want it to be a new body. So now these are two separate components now. So I can do different things to each one without affecting the other. So we're going to oops. We're going to take 2.5 millimeters here. We'll go up 15. Sure. We're going to cut through, but we're only, see it says objects to cut here. We're only going to cut through the mount, not the jerry can. So now it leaves us with just that. Now we can actually go back and on here. We can also add some more style if we like. Let's say I'm going to draw actually, I don't like that line. So we're just going, I'm going to create a couple of more cuts on the side, make sure some of these lines are parallel. Call that 3 millimeters. This is all just random stuff for adding some style. I'm going to do that 1.25. Make sure that we flip that. So it cut through both sides of that. And then guess what? More radius work. More radii. And this is actually going to put a radius all around the inside on that bottom corner, which I don't like. We're going to go back in and add that in a little bit. Do one more cut for style on the front. We're going to leave the back alone. We're going to call this good after that. So I'm doing a little bit of construction lines. Oh, that's weird. Make sure all this stuff is equal so it's symmetric. And we need to make sure a couple of these lines are parallel so that they look good. Again, this stuff is all just for, this is all just for looks anyway. We're just define some dimensions between these. All right. Again, cut, but only to the mount. Just an idea. You could, I don't actually care for this mount that much, but let's just clean it up a little bit. See how it looks when we're done. I could probably mirror the left to right radius, but it's not always as reliable, it seems. Let's just do those sides first. Too much. 1.5. Okay. Is it going to be hollow or solid? This is just going to be a solid jerry can just for 3D printing. You could, technically hollow it from the bottom, but for 3D printing, you adjust your infill rate. It makes 3D printing easier anyway. It just seems much more the way to go. So do that, and radius these outside corners at least. Then just throw a couple of mounting holes in the back. I hate when how it snaps sometimes. We'll make these 3.1 millimeters so that 3 millimeter screw passes through them comfortably. And we'll space them 15 millimeters apart. Make sure this one's comfortably off the bottom so there's room for a screw head. So, would look better if you invert the front. I don't know what you mean. So, simple jerry can, simple mount. I think the jerry can's probably the piece that's more important. The mount, I don't love. Looks like an egg crate. Double check those holes line up with the holes in the front. That is a good point. To be able to make sure, the point he's asking is make sure you can actually get a screw to it. So that is a thing that people forget to do when they design, is make it so that it's actually usable somehow. And so it's an easy thing to do to forget, when you can just keep drawing and then often forget that it has to work somehow in the real world. So now if you wanted to make it so that you could add like a flathead screw in there, you could do that. Make it 1.7 millimeters, and we can just use a 45. So flathead screw now would fit in there pretty comfortably. Could go to 2 millimeters just so you have a little bit more comfort room for 3D printing. So now you don't have to worry about anything getting in the way. Oh, there's all the comments. Countersink hole, countersink the holes. Need to countersink the hole. Yes. So, yeah. And now you can see that you should be able to get a 3 millimeter flathead screw in there. Right and easy. HD on the bottom. Okay, fine. I'll put it on the bottom of this one too. Let's do, where's the text? I just forget. Oh, I'm going to do is text, HD, height, we'll do 16, impact, okay. Close enough to centered. Extrude it up, negative 0.4. There it is. One or both. There you go. So that was all that part of it. Now, I need to, let's go through. I'm going to save these as an STL by right-clicking on the body. Save as STL. Jerry can live. Save the desktop. We'll do that on the mount to jerry can mount live, and I will upload these things to Thingiverse right now. Upload a thing. So let me just throw these on there, and I will have these available for download right away. Oops. Date, 2 files. Scale jerry can with mount. All right, we'll go and select. Now I suppose I can, I'll leave it at that. RC. Where's the RC part? RC vehicles. A simple and it is published. All right, now I'm going to catch up on comments after I touched everything. Everything you create by default needs HD branding. Yeah. Diagnose on the front, go up. He wants him to, I don't know what that is. Oh, cut the bottom out with the HD branding being the bottom structure. Yeah, I could have done that. That's a good idea. I should have read that before I uploaded it. Oh, my bad. Cut the whole HD. God, yeah, you guys all had the better idea than I did. Yeah, a lot of dirt will sit in that mount. I guess it depends if you scoop a bunch of dirt into it, right? Radius the crap out of it. God. So it's published. I am copying. Here is the link to it in the chat. So if you guys are in here, you can do that. And I will also have it added to the actual video description for anyone who's watching this after the fact. But that's it. We're done. Keeping these as short as we, it took, we're in here for over an hour while I draw a single jerry can. So not the most riveting item, I know, but nonetheless. Thank you everybody for joining. I think that we'll keep working on improving this. I think at least after my first screw up at the beginning of this video, we got away without any more, at least that I remember, or at least that I saw. So that's better than last time. And yeah, let's call this thing good. Thanks for watching, guys. If you guys have any questions, suggestions on things to make for the next project, we had some good ones in here. Can you edit the files once you download them? So you can't edit an STL file easily. If you have the actual Fusion file that I drew this in, you can edit things, but there's not really a great way for me to upload that without doing like GrabCAD or things like that. So I'm just throwing up there like that. If you have a 3D printer, you can 3D print away. I'll probably fire up the design and we'll see what it looks like on mine. And that's it. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, anything else, shoot them my way. Throw them in the comments. Let me know what you guys want to see get drawn up. That's all I got for this one, though. Thanks again, guys. See you on the next one.